Hey guys, Argon Tumblr here. So this is probably weird as a New Year's special, but I've been meaning to do it for a while, and it kind of fits in with the whole New Year's thing. It's all kind of reflective, etc. So this is a tribute to, I suppose you could say a personal hero of mine, and this may sound weird, the Angry Video Game Nerd. People be like, well, you probably don't agree with him anything politically. To a certain extent, you probably criticize aspects of him and what he's done. Well, that may be true. At the same time, though, I try to be real with you guys. And I have to say he is a hero of mine and a big inspiration of mine. So while we're in the spirit of self-reflection, let's take a trip back to the past. I remember when I was in, I think it was second or third year of high school, probably like 10 years ago now. And someone who I'm no longer friends with sent me a link, and he's like, "RG, watch this. This is amazing." And I opened it, and it was the Power Glove. If anyone hasn't seen the AVGN take on the Power Glove, it's one of his best episodes. It's one of his early episodes, and he just does a whole thing making fun of how the Power Glove doesn't work. And I just started laughing because it really, to people like me, and I didn't really play that many games really far back in the day. I had a Sega Genesis. I only had like 3 or 4 games for it. My first real console was the N64, and an old PC, which I played strategy games on, like Command and Conquer and stuff. But he captured kind of the experience of having a frustrating peripheral, like a rumble pack, a memory card, something that just didn't work. And I'd played some of that stuff over at friends' houses. I'm like, this is really kind of tapping into the zeitgeist. It's kind of tapping into our collective shared memories. And you may say, well, but it's just video games. Video games are just silly, childish things, and maybe to a certain extent they are, but they're also kind of the way our culture is. It's kind of like for a lot of people, hearing Frank Sinatra reminds them of their childhood, or watching It's a Wonderful Life reminds them of what movies used to be like back in the day, and they feel nostalgic. Well, the AVGN was really the first thing that did that, and I was kind of profoundly surprised at just kind of how deeply he captured a moment in time. He kind of, to me, he's older than me. I grew up during the 90s, but he kind of did capture that. He kind of captured the frustration, the often bad programming, kind of the Wild West nature of early video games. Kind of a time when we were just trying to figure out how to make all this stuff work, and not just video games, but just computers in general. And it's very fascinating to see all the directions technology could have taken. So I find the whole thing interesting from a sociological perspective. But overall, the man just he invented basically a new brand of humor. He invented kind of a form of swearing that's almost I don't know, Shakespearean. He kind of took swearing to an art form. I suppose to a certain extent you can criticize him, and if you notice, I often swear, often when I'm not even really being serious. I admit I get that from him. Because at that time, that was back when I still was like, oh, you can't swear, it's the worst thing you can do. And he just did it, and he just did it to an art form with just some of the, like, shitload of fuck. I mean, that's hilarious. Etc. And I thought it was hilarious, and I guess I kind of adopted that over time, probably to my detriment. But it's still kind of an interesting thing, and I think what was big about him, especially compared to some of the people who came after him, was that none of it was really offensive to me. I mean, there was always a very strong sense of tongue in cheek. I never got the impression that he was just doing it to try and make a society of degenerates or to harm the popular culture. The impression I've always got from the AVGN is that he's a consummate professional, and that may sound weird considering that his stuff has so many things where he shits on games, literally. But there's never any politics in his reviews. He never goes on like stupid rants. I've never really heard anything particularly degenerate about his personal life, other than the fact that he plays video games, which I don't really care about. But it's something that I just really respect, because we get to an era eventually where like you have nostalgia critic and especially the nostalgia chick, and they're just kind of SJWs, and they just always go on about politics. They always use the reviews to make a political point, etc. They do all these like side rants, but the AVGN just kind of, he's just like, I'm above that. What I'm here to do is I'm here to make an entertaining product. I'm here to kind of capture the nostalgia and kind of the collective experience of a generation, and to provide that to you in an entertaining format. And I'm sure he's done some things, particularly in the movie with, well, we all know what happens in the movie. I refuse to watch it for that reason, but I don't think we really need to go into into detail. But he by and large has never really done anything political. He's never done anything SJW. He just kind of puts out his content, and he just tries to entertain. And when you see him in interviews, etc., you get the impression, he always talks about how since he was the youngest person, since he was very young, he always had crappy video cameras. He always would make movies as a kid, and it's kind of just his goal in life to make movies. And he was a guy who, at a time when no one was really doing stuff like that. I mean, I guess there was Red versus Blue, but no one was really creating kind of original content in that way. Who went out and he just kind of set out and followed his dream, and he was able to succeed. And it's nice to see a man who so obviously loves what he does and kind of loves being entertaining, bring that, be able to fulfill his dream, because lots of people aren't. As I've said many times, it's not necessarily the fault they aren't, but that it just wasn't really in the cards for them. And he was able to fulfill his dream, and he was able to do what he loves, and he was able to bring joy to millions or hundreds of millions of people. And that is a rare thing. There's a certain, even if he does swear a lot, even if it is often profane and violent, I think there is a certain just joy in what he does. And you can tell that the man really likes it, and that it's not just a business for him. And it's funny, because whenever you see James Rolfe in interviews, he always just seems like a nice guy. He just kind of is this quiet, kind of unassuming, just really chill guy. He's the kind of guy you'd kind of like to hang out with, maybe play some video games, talk about movies and stuff. But he just seems like a really decent human being. He's married now. He has a kid. So I guess it's still his business, but he kind of did what he was supposed to do in the end. I mean, that's who he is. He's the average gamer. He's kind of the average kid who grew up in the 90s and 80s and didn't ever really grow up. And there's a certain charm to it. There's a certain innocence to it, that's kind of blind to the bigger issues of the world. But it's blind in a good way. And it's nice, and I think this is very important, to have a place where people can go to just turn their minds off and just have a bit of fun. And kind of not be talked at, not be involved in kind of some political thing. And I think to that end, the AVGN provides a great service. And he's a core, he's a big inspiration to me. He's one of the reasons I got into this, along with Millennial Woes and some other people. Because he really just was a guy who had a camera and had some time and had some natural talent, and he just went out and did it. And to that end, he just said, well, I can create a new thing, I can do this, etc. And he had more training, obviously, than me or most other people who get into it. But he just said, go out, give it a shot, make some mistakes. You're not always going to make a good one. I'm not always going to make good videos. I'm not always going to make content. I'm not always going to do things that my fans agree with. But I'm always going to have fun. And I'm always going to do what I love to do. And if I can entertain people, then my work here is a success. So, yeah. I do have a lot of respect for the guy. Even if he doesn't always follow kind of what would be the ideal in my world. Um, I really do like you, AVGN, and keep making the good content. Keep there because you're something I remember from my teenage years. Oftentimes when I was going through depression, I'd come home and watch one of your videos and just laugh. And I don't know, I'm just trying to be honest here. So God bless AVGN. Keep up the good work. This is Argent Templar with my New Year's special.